You are listening to the FeedBak
Podcast with my homie Back.
And we're live. Welcome to the FeedBak Podcast, everybody. My name is Back.
Hey.
I got Miko in the house.
Hello, world.
I got Lane in the house.
What's up?
And I will introduce these two people over there in a second. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Collide ATX for letting us host the show.
Thank you, Clyde.
Thank you so much. Second time in the building. Thank you so much. And this show is brought to you by Herd Entertainment. Make sure you go to EmpireATX.com. Check out their lineup. Always dope. They got Bubba Sparks coming to town. T.I. Rebirth Brass Bands coming to town. Village People's coming to town.
Yeah,
believe it or not. Yep. So go to EmpireATX.com. Check out the lineup. Get your tickets and use promo code FDBK for 10% off. All right. Now, let me introduce our guest here. Thanks so much for coming, by the way.
That's a cue to cheer, guys.
Hello. We're in here. I want to introduce our guest, Steve Mayeda. Am I saying her name right? Founder of The Sexual Life.
That's correct, too.
Blogger, podcaster, coach. What else? What you do so much.
Yeah.
So you teach men how to be men, right? Is that?
Sure, I guess. I mean, I've been a men's coach for 11 years, and everything that is included in that, even right now on Sunday, there's a call that we have every Sunday that goes on for about 15 to 20 hours where guys can plug in. There's all these coaches that come on, and hopefully they're watching.
Nice.
Shout out to the group.
But good to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for coming in. Erin Russell, writer, blogger. You've published on HuffPo, Women, Austin Way, The Eater, and thank you so much for coming. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about dating, planning a date, the whole dating cycle from socializing to finding a date to planning it, running through it, the whole cycle. But I would like Lane to take over.
All right. So today we're going to kick it off and just kind of go through the art of planning a date. So we have a lot of experience, I think, in the house, people that have dated before, or as Steve's case, coached plenty of people that have dated. So the first step that I like to think of when I think about planning a date is you have to get a date. So
Step one.
unless you want to go by yourself, which is also an option.
I don't think that's called a date at that point, though.
No, it's just like a solo date or something. So the main thing that I think a lot of people in Austin, especially if they're new to the area, they tend to go to a social platform such as one of the dating sites that are out there. And so I kind of want to just get some feedback from the group here of like, do you have any recommended dating sites that you've used maybe in the past? I know not everybody here is single, but that you think is better over one or the other. So we have like Tinder, Bumble, all these different options out there now. Let's start with Erin. Do you have any recommended sites?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on Tinder. I'm not going to lie to you. I actually prefer Tinder to Bumble or anything else. I know Bumble's based here, and it's supposedly for women, so sorry that I don't like it as much. But I actually don't really feel like all the people on there are real. Like, when I first got it, I was, like, seeing all these dudes who were super attractive, and I would go look them up, and they would live, like, in Los Angeles or something. And I was like, why are you showing up on my Austin screen? And it wasn't, like, a distance thing. It was just, like,
On Tinder?
They weren't even here, yeah. No, this
Let's
is
not
on
talking
Bumble. This is
on
on
Bumble.
Yeah.
Let's just point out for a second that she does do her research.
Yeah, no, I am a
Social
journalist. I will
research.
stalk the shit out of you. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I think most people are on Tinder. That's what people use. I think that's what you should go with.
Have you seen guys that just stand on Congress and 6th Street, put a 5-mile radius on it, and just keep swiping right in the hope that they can find somebody?
I don't know. Have you?
No, I haven't.
That could be somebody's strategy.
I think
imagine.
it'd be a good technique. Just go downtown, just standing in the corner of 6th and Congress, and you keep swiping right because you can it's walking distance, and you're downtown. They're already drinking, so that could help.
The app you can do that best with is Grindr. You got to try it.
Yeah, let's not. There's plenty of other options too. Like we wrote a couple of other ones down. Like Match has kind of a connotation around more relationship based. I've actually never tried it, but I don't know if anybody here has. But where you tend to be more serious is what I've heard about Match. But
You want me to pay money for something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay,
It's the internet.
I have friends that do Match. I think for young professional women in Austin, I have a lot of those friends that are single. They would say that Bumble is a good option for them, but I personally just found that like when I was on Bumble, I'm not on any dating sites right now, but when I was on Bumble, what I would find is like you would say hello to the person, they have 24 hours to respond back, but then you often would just get a hi back, something super lame. So I wasn't really a fan. And then Tinder, I feel like a little bit has that negative connotation, like, oh, it's just a hookup site, but
Which is weird because they actually, I mean, granted it's from Tinder, but like they just actually did some research showing that like most of the people on Tinder want relationships. Like it's actually a slightly higher percentage than like the general population who's not on Tinder. So.
And I think that's just like an old way of thinking.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because when it first came out, it might have been more like that. But I feel like you said earlier, there's a lot of people, most people that get on an online dating site, I feel like go to Tinder as their first option because there's more people on there.
Yeah, and also to be fair, I mean like, yeah, I also hate this aspect of Bumble that like I have to talk to people first. But that's totally like what it's like for dudes on Tinder. So like at the same time, it's like we're getting a taste of what their life is like.
Yeah, good point.
Is Tinder still hot? Because I mean, when it came out, like everybody was on it, and it hasn't been in the news. There's other apps that came out. I mean, Bumble. There's one called Unveil that I saw the other day where you talk to the person to a blurred picture, and the more you talk, the more, you know, then the picture unveils itself. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know about that.
So it's like, oh, we're not about looks. We're just about conversation. So the more you talk to that person, the more chance you have to meeting that person. So is Tinder still relevant at this point, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think what we're both saying is that I think that's the most popular option out there right now. There are some other ones that if you want to get really specific, there's like Christian singles,
FarmersOnly.com.
Grindr.
Plenty of
Grindr.
fish. Okay, Cupid.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so the next thing that I want to talk about though around the dating sites is how do you get somebody to respond to you? So what do you suggest to the group here to put on your profile to entice people to reach out?
Pictures with fish.
Money.
Dead animals.
Wait. I'm actually kind of sad because I didn't get asked on the whole dating app thing. So there's like, you guys are talking about how dating apps are marketed and how they're seen by people. So if it's made for women or Bumble or whatever, but what does it get used as? And so the best dating app for you is the app that you can use for your life. If you want to get laid, you can use Bumble. You could use Christian Mingle or whatever the hell it is. You can use that, like, because that's what happens. So, I mean, in seeing what actually happens, it's much different than what the marketing is. And the marketing is if you're buying that and you're actually looking at going like, oh, well, Tinder is for hooking up, and you think that that's why everybody's doing it, or you asked a bunch of people on the street of a legitimate study or whatever of if they want relationships, of course they're going to say yes, but what do people do? And so what do they use them for is much I think a more important thing. It's a broad subject, but I would say use whatever you want. Plenty of people hook up all the time on Match. There's plenty of people that go in with the intention of a relationship. Plenty of people go into Tinder wanting to hook up, but end up in relationships and stuff like that. But you have to start where you want to start. And if you're young and you look good, start with Tinder. Because that's obviously what it's showing first.
Right.
Bumble, it doesn't favor women or men anymore, even though it's designed and marketed to say that. I mean, I know guys that hook up on that all the time, and I know guys that want relationships that are on that all the time. And then I know people that are on eHarmony, which is supposed to be the best for like weeding it all out, that will get laid the fastest from that.
eHarmony?
Oh, easy, yeah. It's
Getting some
cake.
harmony.
Any of those things is people are on there because they're not meeting people in real life. And that's easier now more than normal, but they're on there because they generally are having trouble for it. You'll find the most, but I'm just saying from what I've experienced and what I've had like thousands of men and women tell me about it. Most women that I know that date and meet people don't like dating on there because they'd rather meet somebody in person, and they feel like that's a lost
And we'll
art.
get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I thought you...
I mean, I just think dating apps are kind of more efficient because I could meet someone at a bar, but I don't know if he's single, if he's like a Lakers fan, which is obviously a relationship killer for me, like
Spurs fan?
Yeah, I'll do Spurs. I'll do any Texas.
They play tonight.
Yeah. Also, and saying like, what kind of thing you want to see on your profile. So I legitimately have seen people who put their fucking credit score on their Tinder profile.
All three?
Take notes.
I don't even know what goes through people's heads. But yeah, so I actually to like plug myself. So I am a writer. I have a website, erinrussellwrites.com, and I actually am kind of putting together a guide to how to make your profile not suck. It's definitely geared towards men because I feel like you guys have more problems with this. And one of the things that I say for sure is, if you're a dude, get a woman to put your pictures up, because y'all don't know what the hell girls want to see. Like, again, like pictures of like fish or like shirtless selfies that also show your pubes, because no one wants to see that. Or like, yeah, your credit score. Like, there's just so many things that I see that are just so awful, and I'm like, I just feel like you should at least, like, maybe if you're an art director, you can choose your own pictures, but like still get a woman to like go through them and make sure they're okay.
I mean, I saw the article you wrote. I mean, the list goes on and on, from picture with a toilet behind you.
Oh my God.
Dead animals. One where the guy's not even on a picture. It's like a helmet or something else.
Yeah, please be in your pictures. That is very helpful for us.
Like, what kind of advice would you give to the men that you coach?
Dude, so I mean, it's all over the map. So there's actually a guy that got probably, his goal was to have sex as much as possible. He was in his 40s, and he is a good-looking guy, and his goal was to just have, he just got divorced. He's like, I want to have sex as much as possible, and then figure out life after that. And he actually put a picture that wasn't of him on his Tinder profile, and it worked better than anybody else's. So, I mean, you'd have to look, and then also when you look at pictures,
She's like, what?
when you, no, I mean, she's right in what she's saying. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you have to look at everything, and you have to. If you go in with assumptions of what you think, that's not the truth, right? And so, and I mean, I worked as a photojournalist for, I don't know, like 7 years. And so one of the things is that you'd have to look at what is actually happening. People on Tinder and those different apps or Bumble or whatever it is, look at the first picture. That's the most important picture.
Right.
So you have to look at whatever gets attention. So in my friend's case, he did something that got people's attention,
And
which
Tinder
was a
actually,
joke.
Tinder has a smart choice now, so like it'll automatically see which picture is the most popular
Yeah, I
and
saw
then put that
that.
first.
Oh, upgrade.
But you're trying to moneyball the whole thing. That's what it sounds like.
I mean, no,
Yeah, it is. It's a number. Dating is a numbers game.
it's what you want for it, right? So this whole thing is like to meet people, right? So how are you going to meet people in the way that you want first? Anybody going into any relationship thinking that the tool to get you to meet somebody is going to teach you how to be a human being, get you good sex, make you a man or a woman is delusional. But this is to meet people, all right? And so you have to look at that, and you have to look at it in a way where it's going to actually represent yourself to move into what you want.
Yeah.
Let me
Go
jump
ahead.
in here. I have a whole lot. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I thought to stay on the different Tinder apps, and then I'll go into profile. So I'm single. I've been single for a couple of years now, and I've definitely been all over those different apps. Tinder is probably my favorite one if I had to use one of them. I've used a couple of different ones. OkCupid just doesn't seem like there's a lot of people on there, and Bumble I felt didn't have the diversity I was looking for when I was on there. And so Tinder has all the things I was looking for. So I tend to be on that one. As far as what to put in a profile, I, in the beginning, had something like very much about myself. This is who I am. This is what I do. Blah, blah. It was very just honest and innocent almost. And that was when I first started. And then, you get jaded a little bit going through it. I was like, you know what? I'm more of a comedian, and I've just got to not take this seriously anymore. Because I'm not a serious person. I think it's more representative of who I am. So now my shit is just a bunch of jokes that I just say in there to get somebody to laugh or say something, to get a little bit of my personality that you don't just get from reading a bio.
But are they your own jokes?
They are my own jokes.
Okay, so that's another problem
But
for me is
interesting.
like when people post like this same, like I've seen that thing about the fucking Kia Sorrento's on fire like 700 times, or like different like ratings of people. It's like there's so many things. Like I just feel like it's important to be original. But I mean, unless you're trying to get laid, that's fine. Then you can do whatever you want.
What's the difference?
When I'm
you can be original and get laid all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I'm all for being original. I'm not for doing something that is impersonal. But like it's keep it short, keep it simple, because people aren't going to read. People aren't on there to read
Yeah,
about you.
people
They're
are
on there to
not
look at a
reading your
picture.
whole
They're really going
profile.
through pictures first, and then if you like match, then they'll read the profile typically.
I am one of those people. I read your entire profile and I look at every single picture before I decide if I'm going to provide.
We've established your stalker credentials.
I am real creepy. Yeah.
I think everybody does that. It's just the first
degree.
thing is the first picture, and then you got to tier, or you got to see the order that it goes in of what
Yeah.
people read.
If we match, that's when I start Googling.
What do you look for in pictures? I know, like myself, when I'm looking at different pictures of an app, I'm deciding like in their profiles, keeping the profile topic. I look for people having fun that just enjoy life, right? It's all about what you're looking for and what you're trying to get out of someone. So if I see a bunch of frowns or mean mugs or stupid Snapchat filters, I'm like, all right, left. But if I see somebody smiling and enjoying themselves, just generally happy in life, I'm like, oh, bonus points. Like, I'm more apt to swipe right for that.
He has a whole rating system. Like, if there's 5 girls on the first picture, like, okay, I think it's this one. Let me go to the next 3. Okay, on the scale of 1 to 10, that's a 5. But she
Nico
has a
is
cat
a
in the
ratings
in
guy.
the
Yes,
picture,
that's
plus 1.
So funny. Yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
I
Lynn.
think, it's good to just give these tips because I think it is an option for an easier way to meet people, like you were saying, Erin. I agree with that. And Steve, what you were saying too, though, is whatever you want to be your intention of it, go into it thinking like that. And I'm with Miko on the, don't take it too seriously. I feel like some people really put all this like effort and thought into their profile when somebody could be going through every single detail like Erin, or somebody could just be looking at it, swipe left or right just based on your picture and they're not even reading anything. So just don't take it too seriously. And then we have to acknowledge, though, that there is still an option to meet somebody in person, but even though that seems to be...
Are you sure that's an option?
Do you remember that? Yeah.
Although it seems to be a little bit harder these days with all these options of the dating apps. So Steve, if you want to give any advice, like when you're out, when somebody's out on the town, or maybe they're just like at a show, a concert, what do you suggest for an engagement with somebody that maybe you're interested in and you spot them from across the place?
They need to be like Noah, who just left. I mean, man, there's always a reason to talk to somebody. I think the problem is that we have there's all these studies that are done. The more densely a population is, the more separate they are, and the more superficial we talk to people. So that's a bummer. And then that's the rise of dating apps and all that sort of stuff. The more densely populated we are, the less people actually connect and communicate on a level. There needs to be a sense of openness and lack of scarcity and all that sort of stuff, and our emotions get all this. There's all these speeches and talks I've given on this. But anyway, the thing is that to meet somebody, we need to make it so... It's abnormal now to ask somebody how their day is, or to ask somebody to say hello to them. It seems like everybody has an ulterior motive. In fact, there was an experiment that we did where we just went around and said what we thought to women. And it was interesting because you got different responses. So if you went up and said you were beautiful, people thought you were hitting on them. And if that wasn't your intention, or whatever that was or not, that's sad that has to be the first thought. That an actual expression, I mean, you guys are talking about authenticity is cool, but wait a minute, when you say it face to face to somebody, that it might offend somebody or it's politically incorrect, that's wrong. So if you said that somebody was beautiful, a lot of the time, man, I mean, like, let's say like 3 out of 10 times, which is a lot. I mean, you got somebody who was angry at you that was actually like, well, why are you saying that? Well, I have a boyfriend. It was like, hey, I wasn't even saying that at all. I was just saying you look good. You have a good day. And it was like, what? Why is that happening? So saying hello and talking to somebody has become like a lost art. Being social just to be social and have a human connection is seen as something that is, and I agree, apps are way efficient, but it's seen as inefficient to actually talk to somebody. That's pretty bad. Right before the podcast, I mean, this dude was talking to me, and that was great. People don't do that. People aren't prepared to do that. And so if you see somebody that you like, first off, what I'd say to be socially healthy is start talking to everybody. Talk to guys, talk to girls, talk to old people, talk to kids, talk to people that you don't have an agenda with, because an agenda will come. We hear about all this, like, put pressure on yourselves to go for life, but nobody's living life in the most simple, basic moments. So that's...
Yeah, that was a great speech, honestly.
I just want to say, I want to highlight something you said. It's something we talk about. A lot of us go to live music shows and events all the time. One of our key roles is meet the people around you.
Yeah.
Like, talk to people in line with you, talk to the people that are next to you at a concert. You're going to be with them for the next couple hours. You might as well get to know them. And I guess that applies in a dating scene too. You may be looking at the girl over there, or guy, or whatever that is. Get to know the people around you. That's kind of almost like a warm-up, I think, too.
Yeah.
Get yourself socially used to that social interaction before you engage in something a little bit more serious.
Although it does suck when you're, waiting in line with someone for the next 2 hours and you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And then you find out something horrible about them and you're like, oh, God, I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, I stand next to you.
Hey, neighbor, you're beautiful. Fuck you.
I'm going to go to the back of the line.
There's a couple things, like even talking to that with music. I recorded some stuff with Steve Albini, and he records only on tape. And it's pretty amazing to watch, but he records only on tape, and it has to be played live in order to record it. And one of his things is like, he's recorded everybody. He's recorded Led Zeppelin to Nirvana to all these like people and whatever. He's an interesting guy. But he would talk about that people don't play live music anymore, so nobody gets it, and so now our music loses this feeling. Not to say that recorded and all these like layered music, that's wrong. Expression's expression, but we're not looking at that. And then the other thing too is like, man, I meet somebody every day that politically and fundamentally I disagree with, and part of the beauty of that is that I think that in no way that a personal interaction should be superseded by a cause or a belief. I think that's terrible, that to have a mentality, for me going into it, because I'll meet somebody that, like, let's say they're into like this crazy political cause that's just so evil, they're like Nazis or something, right? You're just like,
I can't go by them, but okay.
I can't talk to this person because of that, and then I give up the experience of actually knowing them. Because throughout my life, the deeper I go, I've had great experiences with people. Like, I don't know you guys, but I'm sure if we went into our lives, we'd find things we disagree on.
Right.
And that's the worst way to go into the little, the minutia of your life to find out what I'm going to like or dislike you on, rather than the human experience.
But you got, one factor you got to add to the whole thing is that if you're at a place to socialize, so you're at a bar or you're at a club, you want that to be that process to be as quick as possible. So that's why you see guys going from one group to the next. That the bar closes at 2:00, so
Playing the
you're
numbers
in a
game.
rush. No, but I mean it's really instant gratification. You talk about it like it is a process, and you're trying to get to know somebody. You want to have a conversation. You gotta keep in mind of the environment you're in, and be able to adapt to that. Nobody's gonna try to have a conversation with you at a bar with loud music and it makes your side tickle.
So just to make things clear, I made it my whole life about getting laid in bars for years, and I did it a lot. You don't go from person to person, really, ever. Most you're going to talk to, well, if you're good at it, you're going to talk to like 3 people the whole night.
But to have an actual conversation, yeah. Well, I think what you're referring to is the player.
Like, once it's 1:30 and they want to get laid tonight, and they're like going to this group, and then they're getting rejected, and they just go somewhere else.
But the guy that actually gets laid doesn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
The one that's having the actual conversation, getting to know the person.
Engaging.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, a conversation may not even happen either. But like, if you want to go to the bare bones, most stereotypical player, guy that everybody hates on, like, I've lived that life, and you don't talk to everybody. You talk to everybody to be social, but you don't talk to everybody as like, okay, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? What happens is you're able to very easily see after a while, all right, that's the girl I'm going to talk to, and I'm going to leave with her. And that would be the most bare bones, like, thing that you do, whether you were having a conversation or not. So. Yeah.
And I think ultimately, if you're meeting somebody in person, the best way to, if you hit it off or have some sort of connection, I think just getting somebody's phone number and taking it from there is the best option, unless you're trying to close the deal, if you were referring to earlier. But I think in general, for me, if somebody asks me for my number, I'm not usually, if we've been talking or like having a good time, I'd be like, okay, you can have my number, and then follow it up after that with texting and getting to know each other over the phone.
I like to plan a later seat, so if I'm going to get your number, it's for something. So it's, hey, that thing we're talking about? Let's go do that sometime. Can I get your number so we can coordinate?
Like, I can't hear you. It's loud in here.
I go with that angle.
Yeah, like even just like, hey, let's go, whatever, get coffee sometime. Keep it simple.
That's a good angle.
Yeah. And I just reminded me too.
His entire game on the show.
We actually never mentioned Coffee Meets Bagel, but one of my friends swears by that being her favorite dating app, because you just meet in person over having a coffee and you have a conversation. So just thought I would bring that up too. Have you tried it before?
I think I have. I mean,
okay.
I mean, there's just not as many people on there, but.
And then the next thing I want to talk about is when you get to the point of you have a prospect and you want to take it to the date. So I wanted to go around and give some tips about what to do for planning a date, like activity-wise, places. Does anybody have any recommendations they'd like to shout out?
So this is, I guess, my reaction to Coffee Meets Bagel, and this is totally just me. I realize I am insane, but please. Like, I do not want to go somewhere and drink caffeine and get like super jittery and like have a date last for like 30 minutes. Like, please let me go somewhere with alcohol so I can be socially lubricated.
Yeah. We appreciate the honesty.
And then at that point, they like, I find out like, oh, well, I don't really want to go to a bar because I don't drink. I'm like, oh, well, I'm a food writer.
It's not going to work out. So a couple of places that I was just thinking of where I would say a good date would be is somewhere that has an activity around it. So like the Good Night, for example, Culinary Dropout, places where you have games where it's not so much pressure as far as like the one-on-one, you're actually doing something and getting to know each other a little bit better that way.
I'm about, you need something that's going to engage you, preferably either, for me personally, competitively or together competitively always is a good something because it also creates a memory, and that's something you can work off of.
And you can beat them at the game.
And then if you
That's
get
where it's
beat-
at. That's where it's at.
And I would also add in there that places not to go are things where you're not engaging with the person.
Movie theater. I don't know where
Movie is
that
the
came from. That
worst. The
whole you're on a
worst.
date. When you go on a date in high school, you take the girls to the movie theater. Then
Well, high school you already
stretch
know
on.
them.
No, I know, but I mean, it's like how is that engaging and going to see a movie and you just
Don't
watching
take him-
something
As an adult, don't take him to the movie.
or even a bar. Really, I don't think that's really appropriate because
So
you're not
never dinner and a movie. That's what you're saying.
dinner.
Not in the beginning.
Not
I
in the
think
beginning.
dinner
Dinner
is
and a movie is fine.
I think dinner is kind of weird for a first date, actually, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't know, like, especially, I mean, granted, most of the people that I meet are from apps, but yeah, it's like I don't know you. I'm meeting you for the first time. I don't want to watch you eat. It's weird.
Well,
And
if
it's
it's
like-
just-
And you're a food critic.
Yeah, and plus,
Hard to please.
yeah, well, and if
And an
they
eating critic as well, apparently.
yeah, if they suggest the wrong place, then I'll reject it. No, but like, it also means like there's a certain amount of time that's like I have to sit there and like wait for food, and so I don't know. I always like having an escape route. So like if I get a drink with someone, it's like okay, well I can have a drink, and if it's going well, then I can have two. Otherwise, I can just be like, oh, sorry, I gotta work. Bye.
Well, and if the date's horrible within the first 2 minutes, you're still gonna sit down and eat, or you're gonna get up and go. You're stuck there.
By the way, I did actually go. I think I went on one coffee date ever, and we went to Mozart's to go get tea.
That's a good spot, though.
And okay,
Nice.
I am all about fairness in dates, whatever. But dude didn't pay for my $2.75 iced tea. Like I was like, really, $3?
Yeah, I
No.
think
So that would be your not for fairness.
So I think
I am for fairness, but like if it's under $3,
But if it's
I'm
under
pretty
$3.
sure you can cover.
So if we went to a place where drinks were $4.50, you got it.
Yeah, we can split it, or yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
go ahead.
communication is the number one key. Because, like, for me personally, I actually don't want to give up my time to just go have a drink. Like, I feel like you need to be buying me dinner kind of thing. So I think, like, everybody's different.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Ooh.
I bought all this makeup and looked pretty. You owe me,
I haven't
motherfucker.
curled my hair, damn it.
Well, do you like when the guy plans it, or you also plan the
Great
date
question.
too?
As long as it's somewhat collaborative, it actually annoys the shit out of me when like a guy will be like, "Yeah, let's hang out sometime," and I'm like, "Okay."
Oh, that's the worst.
What does that mean?
yeah.
When?
like,
Where?
or like they like won't put anything into it, and so I'm like, okay, I'm free on like Tuesday or Wednesday, like.
Nice. You don't give him a weekend day at first, huh?
Oh fuck no.
Go.
No, again, because my escape route is. I mean, it's true.
I gotta work
actually.
in the morning. I gotta go.
No, it is actually true. I mean, since I'm a writer, like a lot of the times I have to go home and work. But like, if it's going bad for sure, I gotta go home and work. Oh, but it's 8 p.m. Oh, sorry, I have an article due tomorrow.
What about
Yeah,
you, Steve? What do you suggest?
So some fundamentals of dating is like don't think about money or all this like big expensive shit. Think about killing this fly so I can eat. I'm gonna catch it with my hand and eat it.
On Miyagi.
Food critic. But anyway, they have good protein and good bacterial
He is
content.
after you.
You're man. What does that say about me? Jeez, God. But yeah. It's always good to have a fly buzzing around you on a date. But I think a good rule of thumb is like don't think about money, and like a lot of guys think about like they're gonna do this big impressive thing, or that it's got to be this huge deal. And a date should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be always happening. So again, what gets kind of crazy, but this is a phenomenon that like they noticed a lot of people liking way back when in the dating industry, was that go to multiple spots, because if you get stuck at one spot, it's less entertaining. And then another thing to think about is that like we have these there's like these little PDFs that we give away for free, and that one of the dates that's just like no money or very very inexpensive would be something like a photo scavenger hunt. It came out of a dating coach by the name of Jason Savage in Austin, and basically you'd go to the Stevie Ray Vaughan statue when the Cathedral of Junk was there. They'd go travel there, then they'd go to Mozart's or something like that. They go to 3 or 4 places and you realize if you like the person or not. And so there's often times where you as a guy you're like, man, this may not be working out, or this isn't what I we're not gelling here. So then you could very easily and politely, without hurting anybody's feelings, say something like, you know what, I got to get home, or, something came up, or, whatever, or just end it there because that's your plan. And if you do want it to continue, how do you want it to continue? And one of the things about a date is you should have it continue in the way that you want. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with people having sex. I mean, I know a website called The Sexual Life, and I think that it's sad that people put so many blocks towards that. So if that's it, then you got to end up at your place or her place. That's it. And it's a choice, and it's something that a lot of people want. A lot of people want that on a date. If you want to get to know them better, then end up someplace where you're going to be alone and talk. But either way, your last place that you end up, so let's say if it was Mozart's, that's great because you guys can talk, you guys can interact, you can get to know the real person better, whether that's through conversation or, doing whatever, planning the next date. So I'd say 3 places, keep it fun. It doesn't have to be expensive. And there's a whole bunch of different ideas on that you can find online. But it shouldn't really cost you any money. So.
Right, and I think that's a key point. Sorry, I'll let you go in a second. Like you were saying too, like the guy that says like, let's hang out sometime. I feel like that's the culture lately, is like if they're a little bit apprehensive to planning something, it's just like, let's kick it or let's hang out, this like general statement. But then there's no initiative to like take it to an actual place or whatever. And then you could go for weeks back and forth on that. So I think what you mentioned, I just wanted to call that out because one of my friends who's really good at dating, she gave that advice to our other friend, which was, hey, suggest the dates that you're available, push it forward so that you're not going this back and forth type of thing.
Yeah, planning I think is serious. Like the ability to plan is one of the most attractive qualities in a man. Yeah. Seriously.
And there's so many options. Just before the podcast, I sent Marzi Smelly a bunch of blogs to these guys because if you can just Google like date ideas in Austin, just date ideas, free date ideas. There's so many different options that pop up, and that. Were you gonna say something, Miko, earlier?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a planner, ladies. No.
Seriously.
Shout out to
camera
and
right
he's
now.
on Tinder.
The whole crew.
His name is
planners.
Miko.
Yeah,
Do an ad right now.
I think I just did. I think you did it for me. One of the date things I did, so it also, Steve makes a good point on what you're looking for in life. And, at one point in my life, I was looking for the picket fence life, ultimately. Less so these days, but when I was looking for that, I plan the first date around that. Let me try to find someone who's also looking for that. How do I do that? So I'm very involved in the community and like to do things out here and podcasts or what have you. I did a couple dates where I planned a volunteer event. And we do a volunteer event first, something not so bad where I don't want them to go too crazy. But then we go get drinks or something like that afterwards. But it made me see a little bit of their character and how much they complained or how much they liked it or whatever it was. And I really measured them by that first experience. Going to the
very
volunteer
interesting.
event.
Okay.
He has an Excel spreadsheet, I swear to God.
Yeah.
It's all by the numbers.
Step 1, step 2, step 3. Yeah, so a couple other ideas that I had put down was putt-putt golf, Peter Pan's always a good spot. Concerts in the park, we're nearing that time of year when there's plenty of options. Those are free. They have music too. I also put spoken word, so there's soul sessions. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Or Encore ATX this month as options. And then also dancing, like some people really like to dance. So salsa at Gloria's was an option on Saturday nights, I believe
Saturday
it is.
nights?
Yep.
I would add anything old school. If you're dating around your age and you go to, let's say, 80s dance party, you go do karaoke, or you go to
Karaoke's good,
pinballs and you play Mario Kart or something like takes them back, and you can really connect on that as well.
Yeah, Kung Fu has plenty of
There
the
you
older
go.
games.
Play
You guys
Pac-Man.
could start a competition there.
So there's a marketing tech. This is a marketing thing from our marketers in the house. When you're doing a change, when you're marketing something new, you want to make sure and throw something old in there to act as a bridge. And I guess you can lose that in your dating life as well. When you talk about something nostalgia, something old school.
Yeah.
New person, old school, yeah.
Go to Dave & Buster's, play Mario Kart.
That's funny. But yeah, so bottom line, there's plenty of options. That should never be an excuse that you can't come up with a date idea. You can ask your friends. You can go online and find options. The next thing is any prep tips for a date just to get ready. So for example, what do you wear? Do you prep any conversation topics? Any recommendations anybody have?
I'll give the one tip I always give when it comes to going out: be comfortable
Yeah.
as far as what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Don't go over the top just to impress the other, especially if it's the first one. But yeah, the my feet hurt. Sorry, I can't deal
No
with
bad,
that
girl. I
shit.
sent you an agenda.
What?
I would
I'm
like
saying
to,
I'm not going on a date to hear you bitch all night about your shoes. That's all.
and I believe we have an ad that we need to throw in here.
Oh, not so much. Really? Not
I
so
got
much
the-
ass.
No, ad. It's ad
Oh, my bad. I heard ass.
That's my Wisconsin.
My bad.
accent.
I didn't get the sign. Oh, shout out to Slab Barbecue. Go to realdoughtbarbecue.com.
Yes.
2 locations. One in Burnett at 183 next to Sherlock's. Second one at Oak Hill at the Y. Slab Barbecue. Go have yourself a Notorious PIG or Tony Montana Dope Barbecue. Go check it out. Mention the feedback at checkout for 10% off. All right. realdoughtbarbecue.com. Shout out to Slab.
And that's actually a great date because you
Right.
can go there and go right to Sherlock's afterwards. You can go do karaoke.
There you
on
go.
Karaoke night there, and then you're right back at it.
Boom.
There you go.
Great idea.
FeedBak's got your date lined up.
So back to the conversation ideas. So when you think about like talking on a date, does anybody ever put together like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight? Like if I get put on the spot.
I did that in high school. But I
Erin,
didn't
please
anymore.
tell me you do.
Yeah, that's a little too much planning. I know I said planning sexy. but
I think I know someone on stage who does.
Well, if I try to avoid getting nervous, for me personally, like I'll just like write down 3 things. Like
Are you serious?
No.
Like any
I'm
topic?
crazy.
Like
Yeah,
that's
politics?
planner.
Sex?
Yeah.
What?
It's always okay. For example, I went to a coach one time, like life coach, and she said that make sure you're showcasing your qualities that you want to, of what you're looking for in somebody. For example, if I'm looking for a relationship, more serious type of thing, then maybe I shouldn't talk about how like I love to go party and I plan all these parties and I love to go to happy hour every day, and like so a little bit less of party girl lane and more showcasing like volunteer lane, family lane, like different aspects of yourself that you want to
Here's my resume.
In essence, though.
I mean, that's a lot of planning you're doing.
Okay, well,
So what were
planner-
they? What were the things?
Yeah.
Well, it was that though, like
Volunteer,
yeah,
yeah.
like how I like to volunteer and how I'm really close with my family, those types of things. Because I think when I was getting nervous, I would automatically talk about all the events that I do, and would just kind of made it sound like all I do is go out all the time, which some people do think that, but it's not true.
Does
It's only
silence
90% true.
Yeah, we already learned about your Saturday night. So.
I went
does
to see-
silence make you uncomfortable?
Yes. So I'm one of those people that I'll like immediately start talking if it's quiet. And one time I was on a date where the guy literally he would get nervous and just like giggle, and it was really awkward because it was a blind date, but he was just like every time there was silence he would like giggle profusely, and I'm like,
You have a
this is
horrible
really
laugh.
weird. Needless to say,
Oh my
I
God.
never went on a date with that guy again.
So I have been on so many first dates thanks to Tinder. I guess thanks. Some of them not thanks. But so like I just kind of have been on so many at this point that I know I have kind of like these stock stories that are like my favorite stories to tell about myself that like end up, getting thrown out. And some of them are like really inappropriate. And I can always tell like if there's a point where it's like either I've had too much to drink on this date or this date's going really well and I'm feeling a little too comfortable, and then I'm like, oh God, I told the dick pic story again.
Oh
What's that
wow,
story?
the dick pic story.
Yeah, tell that story.
Yeah.
This
No,
sounds
you
like
can't
a
just drop
girl-
that now. You have to tell
Podcast
that story.
Yeah, that's the extended features on the podcast story.
That's hilarious. Does anybody have any stories though of a actual date where they either had like a really bad time or a really good time, and there's a story around it?
Miko,
I can
Miko,
go.
Like
raise your
Nico's
hand,
always
Miko.
got a story.
Tinder date. This girl, she was the aggressor. She reached out to me, which is not normal, honestly. Usually Tinder, you've got to reach out to them first. But reached out to me. We ended up going to a Crew Wine Bar in Domain.
Nice.
She was up north.
Your idea or her idea?
Mine. She was up north, and I would just
That's
need.
definitely where you want to go Dutch.
And so went there. A little later, it was like, well, we're supposed to go at 9, but she ended up delaying it to like 10 and 10:30. That was pretty late, as it was. And I was like, all right, we showed up at 10:30, and we came there Dutch, if I can use it that way, right? 2 different cars. And first of all, she walks in. Tinder, one of the things you don't know, I'm not the tallest person in the world, and she was. She walks. I personally don't have a problem with that, but I know women do. more often than not. But she walks in, I stand up, I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going?
How tall are you?
I'm 5'7", 5'6", 3/4, 2 nickels and a dime, but we'll round. And she had to be, I mean, she wasn't that much taller, she maybe 5'8", but she was wearing heels as well. So cool, we sat down, started talking, and I can tell, I'm very comfortable talking to people, as many of you know. I can tell from the very beginning, reading body language, she was extremely nervous. Sits down, starts fidgeting with like silverware and things. And I start asking her questions, right? Trying to make her feel comfortable, things that she knows well. And I get her to start talking. And she talks. And she talks. And she never stops. And
She talked more than you?
Well,
Whoa!
you see the problem here,
You were
right?
out-talked.
You see the problem. So
That is turn off.
like,
That
I
means she's
need a
perfect
mic.
for him.
Yeah, right? I can
So-
shut the fuck up sometime. This is awesome.
she was talking, and she's talking about things I wasn't even interested in, and she never. What was started to get fun to me. I play games and different little things just to entertain myself. I was like, this date's going horrible. She doesn't think that. She's having a good time just talking. Someone's listening to her. So I decided to play a game of how little can I get her to know about me, and how little bit can I talk. And so she would be talking, and finally, like shit, after 30 minutes, she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been talking. What about you? What do you do? Oh, I don't do anything interesting. What about you? Blah, 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 blah." And I throw a question back at her, another 30 minutes. Brrr. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that makes a really good dating tip right there. Is the story over or are you still going?
No, you can finish it.
Are you done talking, Miko?
Man,
Are you
Are you trying to
talking?
catch up from that day?
I was hoping
about you?
hoping for you like tied up and
Is
like
there,
in
yeah.
a basement or something.
Oh,
No, I will say, of all the conversation that happened, when the date ends, I walk her to her car, and she says, well, enjoyed it. We should hang out. I still have some time before my kid comes back, and, we should hang out again. I was like, wait a minute, what? You have a kid? Like, all that talking, and you never mentioned that over the last hour and a half?
Yeah, but she was tall. She probably felt like weird at first because like a lot of tall girls are like, my wife's 6 feet. I'm 5'8". So, and she wears heels. And like a lot of people, so the guy that presents himself to her is it's not all men, so it's guys who have big fronts, who don't deliver like in the back end and stuff like that. So it's like girls that are tall, like they can be, I mean, in some ways, like you go like, man, it's amazing because she's a model, but it's seen sometimes as a hindrance rather than anything else. And then she probably felt, awkward, so she didn't talk about her kid, and those
clearly
things.
Steve is a dating coach. He's like,
Yeah.
see it from all perspectives, Miko.
You're nice. I would have
You
been fine
fucked
with
up, man.
I would have been fine with it. She should have mentioned that earlier. Like in the hour and a half she was
Yeah.
talking. She
I have a
should've
kid.
mentioned
But I think. Oh, go ahead.
And my question is also, I mean, like after the date, was she like, oh my God, that guy like just would not talk, and I had to just talk about myself the whole time. And it was so awkward.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because that could be a
Possibly.
woman's perspective.
that.
Yeah.
Possibly, but then
But you saw it as rude at first and just drew it out.
yeah, I drew it out. I let it happen. She clearly wasn't self-aware.
So there was no follow-up to that?
No, I let that go.
Yeah, you were
So
like,
that was a
you're like,
bad
man.
dating story.
I'm in this for a while. I'm just gonna ride this out. And entertain myself. Yeah.
I'm gonna find a game. I'm gonna enjoy myself while I'm here in some form of fashion.
So that is definitely a good tip about dating is make sure that the conversation is flowing both ways. Like, so if you find yourself talking too much, like engage the other person.
Have y'all seen that Modern Love column? That's the 25 questions to make someone fall in love with you.
No, but it sounds
no.
Okay,
interesting.
so I don't know how much. It's a really interesting column. I have no idea how it actually works, but it does give you really good examples of questions to ask that are like open-ended and interesting. So like instead of like, oh, do you have siblings or whatever, like, oh, who are you closest to in your family? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, they're all
Yeah.
open-ended question, not yes or no type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
we'll have
wanna
to look that up
emphasize
and
that.
reference it, Byron.
I want to emphasize. Yeah.
Have you found Jesus?
That's what I start
Tell
with.
me about your relationship with Jesus.
No, for conversation, you should ask open-ended questions as much as possible. People ask, again, how many siblings do you have? That's closing. Like, you're not drawing a lot out of me. And it's good to get people talking in that way and throw those open-ended questions out there.
Yeah,
Another piece I throw out there, and I'll let you take the floor here. I try to make it a point in life, but that translates to dating, to have more question marks at the end of my statements than periods. Right? Ask more questions in life to learn more about people in general. If you're talking and you're making exclamation marks and periods at the end of your conversation, you're just talking at people. You're not talking with them.
Yeah. And that goes to along with what you were saying earlier. Just try to have a conversation with somebody, maybe without even an agenda. Like, so like think of it more like that on a date, unless you are on an agenda. But just like, hey,
Says the agenda girl.
just having a actual conversation might help relieve some of the nervousness, I think, in general.
Yeah.
And then, did you have anything to add, Steve?
I can go whenever you guys are ready.
You're right. Oh, we're ready for you. Take the mic.
Well, no, I mean, like, so conversation is very simple. So everybody looks at specifics in their life. So we all have our different identities. And a lot of people think they need to start off a conversation with that. Yet our identities link to certain things, which I call general topics. And so everybody has general topics like family, people they're close with, their passions, their ideas, their ideals, things that they're afraid of. And everybody thinks you can't talk about negative things. I'll talk to anybody about anything that has happened in my life, whether that's, being a drug addict, whether that's ending up in jail, whether that's anything that has happened to me that is real. I am convinced that I can get somebody to relate with it, because judgment is a form of separation, and connection kills judgment. So, one of the things that I made, when I started being a dating coach, so I worked in rehabs for a long time, and from when I was 17 and so on. And when I'd meet people, I'd realize there was more to a story, right? That's why it's like, you can't judge. If somebody's a Nazi, that sucks. They're doing bad stuff.
Right.
But you cannot take the humanity out of them. The worst thing that you can do is take that humanity out of somebody before you meet them, because now you've put them in a box. And so much about our opinions about people is because they put us in a box. Well, you're going to say this? Oh, you're a Trump supporter? Fuck you. No, I mean, that person who's a Trump supporter or not, or whatever the hell it is somebody that you can relate with. And if you lose that value, then you've lost, because now your life is controlled by somebody else's thought.
Right.
So that all being said, if you talk to the general, that's key. Not the guy that's selling auto insurance. but you got to talk
Another
to
punter.
You got to talk to the instead of your specifics. So it's like, oh, I'm a dating coach, or I do jujitsu, or whatever, or whatever the hell it is. Those are my specifics. But what do I do? What do I live for? What did I do today that made me feel good about myself? Every single one of you could answer that right now. What did you do today where you go, man, I'm a little bit afraid? Every single one of you guys could do that. It might be hard for you to admit, but guess what makes it easier for you to talk about? If I talk about it myself. So if I can very quickly, not on and on for 30 minutes, right? If I could just go like, man, you know what I was really afraid of today is, I dropped my parents off at the airport, and my kids were saying bye to them and all that sort of stuff. It was just an awkward moment where you kind of wanted everybody to feel the moment, and it just made me, and there was a lot of work that I had to do. It just made me question, like, what am I doing with my day to day? And like, so what made you question that you want to do, or that what you're going through with your day to day? Every single one of you guys can answer that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be real, or it would be a window to the real part of yourself. And if we want to talk about authenticity, then guess what? I could say, I like that. I want to go on another date with you. Or let's say my intent is sexuality, which everybody's so afraid of. I could actually say, that's motherfucking attractive.
Thank you.
You felt that, right? You felt that?
With the gaze and everything.
Anyway,
make me dead in the eye, like, damn. I felt comfortable
You needed
now.
to shift. Don't be afraid, Grinder. I'm on there. Afterwards.
Hello, everybody.
That's hilarious.
Catch me.
Go ahead.
Do you have a story for us, Erin? You have to tell the dick pic one now.
Yeah, I want to hear that
Yeah,
one.
you got to tell it.
I have a
He's
whole
like, "No, I'm not gonna
PDF
have
on
anything
sending
to
a dick
talk
pic.
about on my date.
The right way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a right way to do it.
Right? Way to do
Go
it.
to
All
his
sorts of
website.
research that was put into this.
Crazy.
No, I don't want to call out the person that sent me the dick
Oh,
pic.
call him, give him a different name.
Pseudonym?
Yeah, but if I tell the story, he'll know who he is.
Oh, he was not going to listen. You know who you are.
Yeah, wink,
Basically,
wink.
like, I went on a couple of dates with this guy, and like after the third date, I could kind of tell it wasn't really working. I mean, he was kind of into non-monogamy, and I kind of like monogamy, and so I was like, well, this probably isn't gonna work out. But we were like sitting at a bar, and just talking and drinking, and he like turns to me, he's like, so, you want to see my dick pic? And I'm like,
Oh, he's there.
didn't text
What,
you.
he's
In
there
person,
with you.
You went for the
wow.
live
That's
dick
a whole
pic.
other
That was
level.
like,
yeah,
hold
oh,
on.
You
it
could have
was-
just pulled his pants down. Why use technology? Why the
That
middle
probably, it
man?
would have been a bigger compliment if he actually showed you live.
Let's go to the bathroom real quick.
Hilarious.
You can feel it, you can size it up, you can do whatever, but no, let me show you on the screen. What a waste of technology.
and then
Exactly. That's what you were talking about.
Go
I got a
ahead.
video.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
not even a GIF.
So like 2 weeks later, like I felt like that date we had kind of sealed that we weren't gonna date each other. And so like 2 weeks later, I'm like walking around
Can I just
downtown.
what was your response when he said that though? On that,
I was like, no, I'm good.
Okay.
So he didn't show the dick pic.
We're like in public at a bar. I'm like,
you still haven't answered.
no, I never. No, I said no.
That's
I'm
where
good.
you messed up.
I did not. I did not need to see
You
the
know
dick
who
pic.
you are.
But so then later, I was like, it was South by Southwest. This is a couple years ago, and I was like walking around downtown, and he texts me. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Not much, you." And he texts me, is like, "Not much," and it's his dick. And I'm like, "You
Not much.
You
Here's
really,
much.
So he really had to get that
he
in there.
really wanted to send that dick pic."
Did you reply, not much?
Dude, you're excellent, man.
I don't send dick pics.
That is the best reply to so
Yeah,
you can say, "What's up?" and he sends a dick pic.
Yeah.
Not much.
To
Not
be
much.
fair, there is no way that I could say not much to anything about that dick pic. He was very proud of it for a reason.
Wow.
It doesn't matter. Like, so if he's sending you a dick pic and it's unwarranted, all you have to do is say you don't like it, and then he's like,
Yeah.
How to like make a man feel bad about himself? Just insult his dick.
yeah, or how he has sex. Those two, it's like,
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So now that we're at the end of the main section here, I just wanted to talk about where do we go from here. So
When is it appropriate to send a dick pic? After which date?
yeah, like exactly when can you send a dick pic? So
You
say
don't
you've
need a
gone on a
date.
couple dates, when's it appropriate to, take it to the next level, ask the questions about what your status is, that type of thing. Do you have any tips about that, Steve?
Ooh, how to go Facebook official?
yeah. So it's like all that stuff is like everybody's concept. So if everybody here went in here, so everybody out there and everybody here was like, what do I want in a relationship? You'd have a list and you'd have a plan. And then if I asked you your last 5 relationships, how much of that list and plan actually was it? They'd probably be pretty different. And so a lot of times we have a plan about how things go. And in a way, we should all have plans. We should have directions because we all have a horizon. We all need to walk towards something. Ambition is a core part of humanity that we need to have. But ambition means the pursuit for better of my life, not necessarily that it's that I'm going to get all these things that I want because I'm insecure. So a lot of times our relationships, which are such a core projection of ourselves, are these like fantasies basically of what the reality is that we get. And also what we want so much, like it's like, I want to settle down with somebody, or you hear guys say, I want to fuck a bunch of people. They don't really know. So in a way, it's like, go for what you want, but be open to changing because you will change. And if you hold back on that in any way, you're going to get stagnant. You're going to stay in like plateau land forever. So I think that, these conversations, look, I personally feel, now a lot of people disagree with me on this, is you should have sex as quick as possible before you, there you go, man.
Say it louder. Say it louder.
But
Say it
the
louder,
rea-
Nico.
the reason
You have an
why-
ad going right now.
The reason why isn't to like, humiliate anybody or take advantage. It's because you're actually not being yourself until you are having sex. So I can talk about myself all day long in a great way when I don't know somebody, and they could talk about themselves in a great way. But once we have sex, a lot of stuff calms down. And when it calms down, then I can have a relationship discussion, and then I can have a discussion about my real values. Because before then, it's held back by something. Now, that also doesn't negate the fact that when you have sex, other stuff also comes up, that you have to be prepared to talk about. So sex is one of those things that is our born-to-be communication. In fact, our social drives and our social evolution, even if you look at human evolution and all that sort of stuff, is that it came from sex. So mammals are the most social of all animals, and there's all this integration and mating rituals and all that sort of stuff. Human beings have the most complex brains, and so ours are more elaborate, but that started with sex. It was all to serve the purpose to have sex. And so when we do that, a lot of our brains calm down. A lot of, so much of trauma and whatnot gets fired with, our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex misinterprets it and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, all that sort of stuff calms down once we start having sex. Now, people who've experienced trauma, those sorts of things go up. But at the same time, if you're not sexually active and you're avoiding that and you're having a conversation of all these rules and boundaries about dating and you have trauma, then when you open up the sexual window, it opens up kind of a Pandora's box. So you got to, I think sexual activity is good, and then learn to talk about it from there.
I want to piggyback if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
I have a couple questions about it. Go ahead.
Since I got threw myself under the own bus when I said I agree about the sex. It's not for selfish reasons. Well, okay, it's not all for selfish reasons.
Yeah, it's part, there's nothing wrong with it being.
Yeah, I think part of it is vulnerability. I think that's what you're speaking to.
Yeah.
Once you've been vulnerable with each other, then there's a level of trust that happens, right? You're past that stage where you're pretending. You've been exposed to each other. You've seen your most vulnerable during sex. You hit a new level after that. That's one reason I think you should have sex early. Number two, what if the sex is bad or you just don't connect during sex?
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a long relationship. Oh, we didn't have sex for the first 6 months, and now we did, and it's terrible, and we don't get along, and we don't like the same things at all. Well, now you've invested 6 months into someone who you don't have good sex with. And sure, maybe you can learn over time, but wouldn't have been great to know in the first couple of weeks, and then get past that and say, all right, we're not going to be compatible in that way. Let's move on.
Do it like the French. They fuck first and then they talk.
I feel
Because
like
the concept.
You're from France, aren't you?
Oui, je suis français. So the concept of dating in France, there's not this like tension. They think of it more as okay, I like you, you like me, let's go do something. And there's no tension. Not I can say there's no tension whatsoever because I'd be lying, but there's not this expectation. Like, oh, what happens when I take you back to your house? I'm gonna headbutt you because you don't want to kiss me, and all of that. So I think there's a lot of pressure that's involved with the concept of dating in the first place. But whatever ways you can come up with that will alleviate that pressure, whether it's like we said earlier, playing games or just fuck it, let's get down and dirty and then get out the way and then talk later. I think would help.
Yeah, and like I've
because you think about it too much. Paris. Well,
yeah. So I dated a girl, and we lived off of National, the subway stop in Paris.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's.
How long did it take you?
It's how long did it take me?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh,
did you get with her?
Immediate. Yeah.
French.
Yeah, and but like that having those experiences with people from France or Germany or Austria or many different areas or Hungary. Well, Eastern Europe's a little bit different. But still, there's less of a connotation about sex, which makes you go, wow, this is so weird that in the U.S.,
Puritans,
we like overthink it.
Yep.
And men and women are men and women. The same problems happen, right, of relationships. So it's not like it's this huge evolution of thought. It just starts in a different place. And I think it starts in a place that's a little bit easier to deal with and see the real relationship when in Europe and really most other countries.
Yeah. It's less repressive. Our Quaker background, I always say, is the reason for all that.
Puritan Americans.
Yep.
Yeah, and I actually, I'm a little bit indifferent about the have sex as soon as possible thing because for me, I feel like if you are looking, it depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something more casual, to me, having sex whenever the first date, second date, whatever, is, giving that message off that I'm okay with wherever this goes. But to me, if you're looking for a long-term serious relationship, I find that it's more beneficial to hold off and wait for like the 3 dates type of thing so you can get to know each other a little bit better. Only because in my experience, women just tend to get a little bit more emotionally connected way too soon if you rush the sex part of it. So that's just my perspective.
I also don't want to have sex with an asshole. So, like, I feel like it takes a couple dates to, like, figure out if someone's a huge dick. And, like, if they are, then I don't want to have sex with them.
Or if they're, like you mentioned a lot tonight, being authentic. So you don't know if somebody is showing you, like, this blurred version of them, like, that's putting forth their best self, but it's not really them.
Exactly, yeah.
And I feel like by the third date, I get more of an idea of who that person is and whether or not we connect.
Go ahead.
And I do think it's weird. I mean, I don't know. I think, in the one sense, I think it doesn't matter because I know there's so many people who, have sex on the first date and they're married and it's totally fine. But so I don't know. I think it's just kind of something you have to work out between.
Well, my point is, no guy is gonna go on a first date and smack the girl across the face and go, "This is who I am." There's gonna be put this tension, put on this front because everything you're saying and everything you're doing is being judged by the other.
So first off, if your choice to wait on having sex, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Nobody say
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
But let me just say this, is that think of it that there's two kind of like, in respect yourself. By all means, like, do what you do. That's the best thing to do. But two things would be is that when I hear girls and guys complain about being with an asshole, the asshole was the one that they waited to have sex with longer, because when they had sex, the reality of them came out. And so, like, if I talk to a lot of women, one of the things I'll say is like, we'll talk about their past relationships. I mean, I'm dating a relationships coach. They'll always talk to me about that. They'll say, man, I've dated so many assholes, and it always happened after we had sex. Now, the other thing too is that why is sex so guarded and so feared that it could hurt me? That if I give up my dick, or if you give up your pussy, or you give up your body, that it's going to cause such a threat. And it's not. It's an expression. It's such an amazing thing. It is the ultimate act of connection.
It literally can hurt you. I mean,
but
like,
so can shaking hands. So can making friends with people. But so how
but
can
like
it
the
hurt
act
you?
of being vulnerable for women, like, I mean, saying like, hey, come back to my place, there is the chance that like a dude's gonna rape you.
So
like,
and I'm not saying that you should be afraid. My sex life started out with rape. I didn't have sex for 3 years. After those, my girlfriend was kidnapped and abducted and tortured. I witnessed it happen from across the street. I was powerless in it, and it sucked. And then after that, I have a huge story of addiction. I've had horrible things happen to me on the street, which I don't actually think those are the worst things about being a drug addict or in recovery at all. But those things suck. But I had to go like, hey, you know what? And I work, and that's the other thing too. It's like I work with people in that, and so I spent a lot of my life working with people who've had problems with that, and mainly men, and which made me ultimately a good coach in a separate side of things. But the best thing to do was that I couldn't fear other people. If I walk into a situation with a wall up and expect you to know that and treat me differently without knowing me, that's horrible. And so when I walk into a relationship where I want to have a good relationship and give myself to somebody, that's the ultimate gift. To give myself to another human being, I need to be me. And if I walk into that with fear, then that represses it. Nonetheless, take 3, 4, whatever dates to have the relationships that you want, but go in with the idea that I'm going to be me. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm willing to let that be affected by somebody. Everything I know about masculinity comes from women, not because I'm trying to be a woman, but because I let a woman change me. And that's very, very important. If I held something back, then I'm actually setting up a situation for somebody who is an asshole to be more of an asshole.
Does that give you hope, Erin?
It's an interesting concept to say that, yeah, like he becomes an asshole afterwards, and so you're prolonging it. It's a very interesting perspective, in my opinion. I think just in general, the overall, how I would sum that up is just go at the speed that you're comfortable with, and I don't think anybody should expect it on the first date. I feel like it should just go with the flow and whatever works for you and the person that you're on the date with. So
I think that to go back to that tension, and you can make it as tense as you want it, and there are ways to bring that down. And I think that what people get caught up in is that, oh, if I ask you on a date, that means I want to get in your pants right away. That might not be the case, but again, it's because you want to have that conversation. You want to open up. You want to feel vulnerable. You want to not talk too damn much. Look at me.
I'm just listening.
No, you're right. So
You're just listening.
I'm over
Shoot.
here.
yeah, you're listening. We're gonna wrap things up. Last quick couple of takeaways, advice you want to give our listeners.
Final thoughts. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
If you're worried about dating, you don't need to be. There's so much information out there. There's a lot of bad information, but there's so much information out there. There's so many people spreading a good message. Get around people that you like, but don't be afraid to talk to people that you don't like.
Erin, I'll catch one up for you. You're about to write an article on profiles, right?
Yeah.
Different profiles.
Yeah.
Maybe some final tips, a teaser from what you're writing.
Well, I mean, I already said a couple of them. And I mean, I think, honestly, my final advice would be be yourself, and if people aren't into that, then that's just not the person for you.
Exactly.
And then like, don't be offended by it. Don't think the other person's a jerk or whatever. Like, that's just who they are. That's who you are, and you don't mesh, and that's fine.
Mhm.
And just move on with your life.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
There should be a T-shirt.
Nobody
somewhere.
wants to see. Nobody wants to see my credit score on Tinder. So.
Yes.
Please, yeah.
Tip.
If there's one
Erin
takeaway,
tip.
please don't put your credit score on Tinder. Nobody wants to see that.
Man.
Or
But-
dick pic.
but did you get a lot of guys who just really, really overthink it because there's just so much. That
I mean, I think a lot of guys, when anybody's confused about something, they think of a plan, and men by nature like really come up with a plan and all that sort of stuff. But so anytime you hear like plans and definitions, you're like, oh well, that person probably hasn't had the experience yet. So yeah, you get a lot of guys that have that. So
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Steve.
Thank
Where
you.
can we find your stuff?
yeah, for Austin, if you're Austin locals, we have a men's group, Austin Men's Development. You can find it on Facebook. It's a free group. And then there's all sorts of community and interactions that we have and do, and has to do everything that I mean, obviously dating and sex. If you get men together, whether it's even a religious, you're like a men's Christian group, you're going to talk about being in shape. You're going to talk about your career. You're going to talk about purpose. You're going to talk about dating and your relationships. And it's a good group of guys.
What your website? Your social
Thesexuallife.com, and then there's also AustinMen'sDevelopment.com.
Erin?
Yeah, and mine's ErinRussellWrites.com.
Sweet.
Great.
Any final thoughts, you guys?
No, thank you guys. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much. Shout out to Collide for letting us host
Thanks,
this
Bridget.
podcast.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everybody, for
Thanks
sitting
to
through
our
it.
audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for sitting through it.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Shout out to everybody out there. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow the FeedBak on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes as well. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. Ciao.
Later.
Later.